Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoy my video, please click the like button and share the video. It is the only way the YouTube algorithms really notices me. I will be very grateful to you. They warned me not to go into the woods. Scary story published by Scare Fiction. Read for you by Scray Fiction. Chapter 1. The Warning. The town of Ravens Hollow lay shrouded in a relentless fog, nestled in a forgotten corner of the U.S. Its name whispered through the dense forest that encircled it like a dark, protective barrier. As the late afternoon sun dipped below the horizon, the last vestiges of light struggled through the twisted branches, casting elongated shadows that danced menacingly across the deserted streets. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decay, a grim reminder of the forest's encroaching presence. Alex Carter, a journalist known for debunking myths and unraveling mysteries, had arrived with a clear mission to investigate the strange disappearances that had plagued Ravens Hollow for decades. Armed with a camera, notebook, and a healthy dose of skepticism, Alex stepped out of the creaky rental car and into the chilling embrace of the town. The local diner, an old establishment with flickering neon signs, was the only place still buzzing with life. Inside, the warm glow of old-fashioned lamps did little to dispel the uneasy silence that hung over the patrons. The air was thick with the scent of greasy burgers and burnt coffee, mingling with a palpable tension. Alex took a seat at the counter, where the waitress, a middle-aged woman with weary eyes, eyed them with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. "What brings you to Ravens Hollow?" she asked, her voice barely concealing a shiver. "I'm here to cover the disappearances," Alex replied, sliding a business card across the counter. "Thought I'd start by getting some local perspectives." The room fell silent, conversations hushed, and eyes turned toward Alex, their expressions ranging from cautious to outright hostile. The waitress's gaze hardened. "You should leave those woods alone," she said abruptly. "A lot of folks around here believe there's a curse." Alex frowned. "A curse?" The murmurs grew louder. A grizzled old man at the end of the counter spat into his coffee cup. "You don't know what you're messing with. Those woods have a way of drawing people in and never letting them out." Undeterred, Alex pressed on. "I've heard the story's strange occurrences, disappearances, but I'm here to find out what's really going on. I don't believe in curses." The man snorted. "Belief doesn't matter. It's what's out there that does. You might think you're smart, but the woods, they don't care about your skepticism." Alex sensed the mounting tension, a chilling undercurrent beneath the surface of small-town civility. Despite the growing unease, they were resolute. The local legends, however unsettling, would not deter them. The truth awaited in the shadows of the forest, and Alex Carter was determined to uncover it. As night fell, the fog thickened, cloaking the town in an even deeper sense of foreboding. Alex's footsteps echoed ominously against the cobblestones as they made their way toward the outskirts of Ravens Hollow, the forest looming ever closer, its dark promises whispering through the trees. Chapter 2. Into the Woods. The mist hung low over the forest, a suffocating blanket that seemed to absorb the last vestiges of daylight. As Alex stepped past the town's edge and into the dense woods, the world transformed. The path, barely more than a suggestion through the undergrowth, seemed to close in with every step. Tall, gnarled trees loomed overhead, their twisted branches forming a tangled canopy that let through only occasional, fragmented slivers of light. The forest floor was a soggy mess of fallen leaves and tangled roots, each step sinking slightly into the mire. The deeper Alex ventured, the more the oppressive atmosphere weighed on them. The trees, with their dark, knotted trunks and creeping vines, felt almost sentient, as if they were watching, waiting. The usual sounds of the forest birds, rustling leaves, distant animal calls were eerily absent, replaced by an unsettling silence that pressed against the ears. After walking for what felt like hours, Alex stumbled upon a small clearing. The remains of a campsite were scattered around a charred fire pit, a broken tent, and an old, rusting tin can. Among the debris, Alex noticed something peculiar, strange symbols carved into the trees. They were crude, hastily done, but unmistakable in their intent, ancient runes or warnings etched into the bark. Alex snapped photos, the camera's flash briefly illuminating the symbols with an otherworldly glow. They felt a chill run down their spine as the forest seemed to grow even quieter, as if holding its breath. A sudden rustling to Alex's right broke the silence. Whirling around, they caught a fleeting glimpse of a shadow darting between the trees, a dark, fleeting shape that seemed to dissolve into the gloom. Heart pounding, Alex squinted into the growing darkness, but saw nothing. Just an animal, they muttered to themselves, trying to dismiss the unease creeping into their mind. Probably just a deer. Determined to press on, Alex pushed deeper into the woods, though their resolve was waning. The shadows grew longer, and the silence more profound. The air felt colder, heavier, as if the forest itself were breathing, pulsing with a life of its own. Each snap of a twig or distant creak of a branch sent shivers down Alex's spine, their every instinct screaming that they were not alone. Despite the growing fear, Alex's curiosity burned stronger. The promise of uncovering the truth about the forest, the curse, and the disappearances drove them forward, even as the darkening woods seemed to close in around them, whispering secrets they were not yet ready to hear. Chapter 3: Unraveling the Mystery. The dense forest released Alex only reluctantly, its oppressive atmosphere fading as they emerged into the dim light of morning. They returned to Raven's Hollow, their camera now filled with unsettling images and their mind weighed down with growing unease. Determined to piece together the puzzle, Alex sought out more information from the town's residents, hoping that local knowledge might shed light on the mysterious disappearances. The town library was a quaint, musty building with wooden shelves crammed with old books and documents. Alex was greeted by Mrs. Harper, the librarian, a sharp-eyed woman whose curiosity seemed as keen as her wariness. As Alex explained their investigation, Mrs. Harper's initial reluctance softened, and she reluctantly led them to a back room cluttered with old records. "There's more to this place than meets the eye," Mrs. Harper said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You'll find some old newspapers and journals here. They might help with your inquiry." The yellowed pages of old newspapers told a story of unrelenting terror. Disappearances dating back over a century were cataloged with chilling regularity. The pattern was clear: every few years, someone would vanish without a trace, and the forest was always the last place they were seen. Local legends spoke of a curse linked to a tragic event in the town's early history. One particularly revealing document was a diary from the 1800s, written by a settler named Thomas Hayes. The entries detailed the arrival of a vengeful spirit who had been wronged by the townspeople. According to Hayes, the spirit had been wrongfully accused and executed, its rage lingering and seeking retribution. The diary spoke of dark rituals performed in the woods to appease the spirit, though the details were vague and cryptic. As Alex delved deeper into the materials, a shiver ran down their spine. The accounts described the spirit as a shadowy figure with glowing eyes, capable of manipulating reality to drive its victims to madness. Alex's eyes flicked to the diary's final pages, which were hastily scribbled with increasingly frantic handwriting warnings of a coming storm and the need to leave the town before it was too late. That night, Alex struggled to sleep. The images from the diary and the unsettling encounter in the woods replayed in their mind, mingling with disturbing dreams. In their nightmares, the shadowy figure from the forest emerged, whispering dark promises and beckoning with spectral fingers. Alex awoke in a cold sweat, the line between dream and reality blurring disturbingly. The tension was mounting. Each creak of the old house seemed amplified, and every shadow cast by the streetlights outside seemed to hold a hidden menace. Despite the growing dread, Alex's resolve hardened. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, and they knew they had to uncover the full truth of the curse before it consumed them, as it had so many others. Chapter 4. The First Nightmarish Encounter. Determined to get to the bottom of the forest's dark secrets, Alex prepared for a night in the woods. With a heavy backpack full of equipment and a flashlight, they ventured back into the oppressive darkness, their resolve steeled despite the mounting dread. The forest at night was a different beast entirely. The moonlight barely penetrated the dense canopy, leaving Alex in near total darkness. The oppressive silence was occasionally broken by distant, unsettling noises, branches snapping under unseen weight, the whisper of wind that seemed to carry a mournful wail. Alex's breaths came in sharp, visible puffs, each exhale mingling with the cold night air. As hours passed, the forest seemed to shift and warp. Shadows stretched unnaturally, moving with a life of their own, and the sense of being watched grew unbearable. Alex's flashlight flickered intermittently, casting eerie, quivering beams of light that illuminated grotesque shapes in the underbrush. Every rustle of leaves felt like a threat, every snap of twigs like a warning. Around midnight, Alex set up camp in a small clearing. They carefully arranged their equipment and tried to shake off the creeping sense of dread that clung to their every step. As they attempted to rest, a chilling breeze swept through the clearing, carrying with it a whisper, an almost imperceptible murmur of voices that seemed to call Alex's name. Alex's eyes darted around the clearing, but the darkness remained still and unyielding. The whispering grew louder, more insistent, and then abruptly ceased, replaced by an oppressive silence. Alex's heart pounded in their chest, a primal fear surging with each beat. Then, the shadows began to move. From the corner of their eye, Alex caught a glimpse of a shadowy figure emerging from the trees, tall and gaunt, with eyes that glowed like coals in the dark. The figure moved with a jerky, unnatural gait, its presence exuding an air of malevolence. Alex's flashlight flickered out, plunging them into darkness. In the pitch black, Alex could feel the figure's breath, cold and rancid, against their neck. They fumbled for their flashlight, their hands trembling uncontrollably. The air seemed to thicken around them, each breath becoming more labored. Panic set in as the figure's shadowed form loomed closer, its whispered threats filling Alex's ears. Desperate, Alex finally managed to get the flashlight working again, its beam cutting through the darkness. The figure recoiled, but its presence lingered, the feeling of its icy fingers brushing against Alex's skin still palpable. The flashlight's beam revealed nothing but empty forest, but the dread remained. The night dragged on, filled with sporadic, horrifying encounters with the supernatural. Alex was haunted by fleeting glimpses of the figure, the whispers growing louder, more demanding. Every shadow seemed to conceal a threat. Every gust of wind carried a sinister promise. The psychological strain was immense, and Alex's grip on reality began to falter. Struggling to maintain their composure, Alex knew they couldn't stay in the forest any longer. The terror had become too intense, the threats too real. As dawn approached, they packed up hastily, their mind reeling from the night's horrors, and fled the woods, determined to uncover more about the malevolent force that had made its presence so horrifyingly clear. Chapter 5. The Curse Unleashed. The sun's first rays barely penetrated the thick forest canopy as Alex stumbled out of the woods, their mind frayed by the night's horrors. Back in Raven's Hollow, the atmosphere was stiflingly tense. The air crackled with an unsettling electricity, and dark clouds had begun to gather on the horizon, casting an ominous shadow over the town. Alex's arrival at the town's center was met with a mixture of curiosity and avoidance. They tried to seek help from the townsfolk, but the responses were cold and dismissive. It was as if their ordeal had somehow triggered a shift in the town's atmosphere, amplifying a sense of dread that had been simmering beneath the surface. As Alex tried to process the night's events, the skies erupted in a sudden, violent storm. Torrential rain pounded the streets, and lightning flashed across the sky with alarming frequency. The storm was not just a natural phenomenon. It felt unnervingly synchronized with Alex's own growing fear. Desperate for answers, Alex sought out Mrs. Harper, the librarian who had shown them the old documents. Finding her at the library, Alex recounted their experience, hoping to find some guidance. Mrs. Harper's face went ashen as Alex spoke. "You've unleashed something," she whispered, her voice trembling. "The curse. It's waking up." Before Alex could ask more, the library's power flickered and died. The room was plunged into darkness, and the howling wind outside grew deafening. Alex's flashlight revealed Mrs. Harper's terrified expression before the door slammed shut with a deafening bang. The storm outside intensified. Rain lashed against the windows like angry hands, and the wind carried an eerie, wailing sound that seemed almost human. Alex's attempts to leave were thwarted by a series of supernatural disturbances. The doors locked themselves, objects flew across the room, and shadowy figures seemed to press against the windows, their forms distorted and menacing. The town's response to the escalating chaos was revealing. Residents, once silent and withdrawn, began to reveal their true colors. Some were openly fearful, barricading themselves in their homes and leaving Alex to fend for themselves. Others, with grim expressions and averted eyes, seemed to silently acknowledge that the curse had been stirred and that Alex was now a central figure in the unfolding terror. Isolated and desperate, Alex attempted to reach out for help, but found their calls for assistance falling on deaf ears. The town, once seemingly indifferent, had turned against them. People who had been mere spectators now actively avoided Alex, their fearful glances and hushed conversations a clear sign of their complicity or fear. In the midst of the storm and supernatural upheaval, Alex realized the gravity of their situation. They had unwittingly triggered the curse's full power, and the town's hidden truths were now laid bare. As the storm raged and the cursed forces grew stronger, Alex's isolation deepened. Town's rejection and the malevolent forces' intensifying threats left them facing the nightmare alone, their only hope to uncover a way to break the curse before it consumed everything they knew. Chapter 6. The Descent into Madness. The storm outside raged on, a relentless force of nature that seemed to mirror the turmoil inside Alex's mind. The oppressive weather had trapped them in a state of heightened terror, with the curse manifesting in ways that defied rational explanation. The boundaries between reality and hallucination began to blur, leaving Alex in a harrowing psychological spiral. In the dim light of their flickering flashlight, Alex paced the empty library, their footsteps echoing eerily. Shadows danced on the walls, twisting and shifting as if alive. The storm's thunder was a constant backdrop, its roars seemingly synchronized with the cacophony of voices that now filled Alex's head. The voices were distorted, a cacophony of whispers and shouts that taunted and tormented, blending with the howling wind. Every corner of the library seemed to harbor a new terror. Books seemed to move on their own, and the air was thick with an oppressive chill. Alex's reflection in a cracked mirror was distorted, their own face appearing as a ghastly mask. The line between what was real and what was imagined had become dangerously thin. Alex's hands trembled uncontrollably as they tried to focus on their thoughts, but each attempt only deepened their sense of disorientation. Questions of sanity plagued Alex's mind. The storm had become a constant companion, its fury intensifying with each passing hour. Alex could no longer distinguish between the whispers of the curse and their own paranoid thoughts. Every creak of the building, every shadow seemed to carry a hidden threat. The library, once a place of knowledge, had transformed into a labyrinth of fear and delusion. Desperation drove Alex to seek answers in the forest once more. Ignoring the storm's fury, they ventured into the woods, their flashlight a feeble beacon against the encroaching darkness. The forest, now a place of malevolent presence, seemed to close in tighter, each step fraught with increasing dread. The shadows seemed to move with a life of their own, and the whispers grew louder, more insistent, urging Alex deeper into the woods. In their frantic search for a solution, Alex stumbled upon the remnants of old rituals, charred remains of sacrificial offerings, and ancient symbols drawn in what looked like dried blood. The sense of danger was palpable. The curse seemed to have grown more aggressive, its manifestations becoming increasingly violent. Alex's breaths came in ragged gasps, their flashlight flickering sporadically as if struggling against the dark forces at play. Every new discovery seemed to lead to more questions and deeper despair. Alex's reflection in a nearby pond was a ghastly distortion, their face a mask of terror and confusion. The forest's eerie calm was occasionally broken by the sound of distant, ghostly laughter, sending shivers down their spine. The more Alex searched, the more the curse seemed to prey on their deepest fears and insecurities. The realization that they were trapped in a nightmare of their own making began to sink in. The forest, the town, and the very fabric of their reality had become a battleground for their sanity. Desperate and terrified, Alex's only hope lay in finding a way to break the curse before it consumed their soul, leaving them a mere shell of the person they once were. Chapter 7. The Final Confrontation. The forest was a twisted labyrinth of shadows and fury as Alex plunged deeper into its heart, driven by a desperate need to end the nightmare. The storm had subsided, leaving behind an eerie calm that seemed to hum with latent energy. The oppressive silence was broken only by Alex's ragged breaths and the occasional crackle of branches beneath their feet. Every step felt like a journey into the abyss, each shadow a potential threat. After hours of frantic searching, Alex stumbled upon a hidden clearing, the epicenter of the curse's power. The area was marked by ancient, crude symbols carved into the ground and surrounding trees. At the center stood an old, weathered altar, adorned with remnants of past rituals, a chilling array of bones, withered herbs, and dark stains that hinted at blood. Alex's flashlight illuminated the altar, casting long, eerie shadows. The oppressive weight of the curse seemed to press down on them, making every breath feel labored. Cold wind picked up, swirling around the clearing with a menacing presence. As Alex approached the altar, a figure materialized from the darkness, a shadowy, distorted form that seemed to blend with the night itself. The entity, the source of the curse, had arrived. The figure's eyes burned with an otherworldly light, piercing through the darkness with malevolent intent. The air grew colder, and the ground trembled as if the forest itself was awakening in response to the presence. Alex's heart pounded as they faced the entity, their fear and determination warring within them. In a voice that echoed with ancient rage, the entity spoke, its words a chilling mix of despair and vengeance. It revealed its origins, a wronged spirit bound to the forest by the townspeople's ancestors, seeking to reclaim its lost life and punish those who had wronged it. The curse was not merely an act of supernatural malice, but a desperate cry for justice. Alex, their mind racing, realized that to end the curse, they had to perform a ritual of appeasement as outlined in the old documents and diaries. The ritual required confronting their deepest fears and making a sacrifice to appease the spirit. The altar was the key, and Alex had to use the items found around it: bones, herbs, and symbols to complete the ritual. As they prepared the ritual, the entity attacked, its form shifting and writhing with rage. Alex fought back, using every ounce of their remaining strength and courage. The battle was both physical and psychological, with the entity preying on Alex's insecurities, making them doubt their resolve. Each moment was a struggle to maintain their focus and complete the ritual. In a final, desperate act, Alex completed the ritual, offering a symbolic sacrifice, something deeply personal, a memento of their past that represented their willingness to confront their fears. The entity howled in anguish as the ritual took effect, its form dissipating into the night. The curse's power waned, and the forest's oppressive presence began to lift. Just as Alex began to breathe easier, a shocking revelation emerged. The true nature of the curse was not just about vengeance, but also about a hidden pact made by the town's founders, a pact that bound the spirit to the land. The town had been complicit in covering up this dark history, and the curse was their punishment for their ancestors' sins. As dawn's first light touched the clearing, the forest seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. Alex, exhausted and shaken, knew that the town's dark secrets had been exposed, and the curse had been lifted, but the truth had come at a great cost. The final battle had changed their understanding of the town and themselves forever. Chapter 8. The Aftermath. The sun rose over Raven's Hollow, its light slowly dispelling the remnants of the storm and the dark energies that had plagued the forest. The once oppressive atmosphere now seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, though the scars of the curse were evident in the disheveled town and its shaken resident. The forest, while quieter, still harbored the echoes of ancient horrors. Alex stood in the clearing where the final confrontation had taken place, now bathed in the gentle light of morning. The altar, once a focal point of dark rituals, lay empty and abandoned. The bones and symbols were scattered, their power diminished, but not entirely erased. The entity's presence was gone, but the weight of its influence still lingered in the air. The town was in a state of disarray. Residents emerged from their homes, their faces reflecting a mix of relief and deep-seated trauma. They gathered in small groups, whispering among themselves, their eyes darting nervously towards the forest. Curse's impact had left a lasting mark, both physically and psychologically. Some townsfolk were visibly shaken, their movements hesitant and their expressions haunted by the recent events. Alex's own reflection in a cracked storefront window was a stark reminder of the personal toll. Their face, once marked by determination, now bore the traces of exhaustion and psychological strain. The ordeal had left them scarred, the memories of the nightmarish encounters and the battle against the entity etched deeply into their psyche. As Alex prepared to leave Raven's Hollow, they took a moment to reflect on their journey. The quest to uncover the truth and confront the curse had come at a great cost. The town's dark secrets had been revealed, and the immediate threat was neutralized, but the lingering effects of the curse were palpable. Alex knew they couldn't stay. There was no place for them here anymore, not with the weight of what they had witnessed and the need to move on. Before leaving, Alex spoke with Mrs. Harper, who had emerged from hiding with a grave expression. "Thank you," Mrs. Harper said softly, her eyes reflecting both gratitude and sadness. You've done something no one else could. But be wary, the darkness doesn't always stay buried. With a final glance at the town, Alex departed, leaving behind a place forever marked by its haunted past. As they drove away, a subtle unease settled over them. The curse had been broken, but the forest and its secrets were not entirely vanquished. There was a lingering sense that the darkness might return, that the past's malevolent grip might not be fully released. The final image of the forest, a silent, brooding presence in the rearview mirror, carried with it a final, unsettling thought. As the town receded into the distance, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that the curse, though momentarily subdued, had left a mark on the land and on them. The forest's shadows, now fading in the morning light, hinted at an unresolved mystery, a reminder that some darkness never truly disappears.